The girl upstairs, the girl upstaged Claressa Shields, Remy Ma, and the premiere night sabotage nobody asked for. Okay, so we need to talk, and we need to talk right now, because somebody decided that tonight, the same night Remy Ma has a brand new Lifetime movie debuting on a major cable network, would be the perfect evening for Claressa Shields to dust off a 3-year-old cameo and try to wave it in the air like a freshly printed Oscar. And let me just say this piece, that is not coincidence. That is choreography. That is a woman with a calendar, a stopwatch, and an obsession problem the size of the Flint city limits. You want a good visual? Let me give y'all a good visual. Picture a woman so married to another woman's shadow that she has built her entire 2026 content calendar around whatever the Queen of New York is doing that week. Picture her in front of a ring light, scrolling a burner account, refreshing somebody else's tagged photos like a Wall Street trader watching tickers. That is the energy. That is the temperature in the room. And tonight, on premiere night, this so-called champion decided to remind the planet that she was in a movie called Lola 2 back in 2022, a movie where, according to my own forensic timestamping, she shows up for maybe 15, 20 minutes of an hour-and-a-half runtime, and the rest of her screen time is essentially boxing footage of her doing the one thing she actually does for a living. Listen, that is not a co-star credit. That is a glorified workout reel with end credits attached. But because Remy Ma has a movie debuting tonight on Lifetime, her second one, by the way, second Lifetime feature, which is 2 more than most reality show rappers ever sniff, Claressa Shields, the self-appointed greatest of all time of women's boxing, needed the world to know she was also, technically, in a movie. One time. 3 years ago. With a budget that probably wouldn't cover the catering at her premiere. Take your discount bin, B-roll padded, 15-minute cameo having self out of here. I am being dead serious. Hey there. It's the spot where we say what nobody else will say, and we say it with our chest, and we say it the way your group chat is already saying it, but won't put on camera. Everything I am about to share is alleged. Everything is opinion. Everything is in my own very personal viewpoint. This is entertainment, this is commentary, and the relevant copyright fair use citation lives in the description, exactly where it belongs. Now, housekeeping out the way. Let us get into the meat, the potatoes, the gravy, and the side of attitude that comes with it. Today, we are talking about Remy. Today, we are talking about Claressa. Today, we are talking about a Lifetime movie premiere being used as a target, a date on a calendar being used as an enemy, and a boxing champion who cannot seem to wake up in the morning without first checking to see what her ex-husband's wife is doing that day. Yes, I said wife. I said ex. I said the words. Because that is the order of operations here, and the order matters. Remy Ma was the wife. She is the celebrity. She is the headline. And Claressa Shields is the woman who keeps trying to write herself into the footnote, and the bibliography, and the index, and the acknowledgements, and any other place she can scribble her name on someone else's manuscript. Let me give y'all a good visual one more time, because the visual matters. Remy Ma tonight on Lifetime. A psychological thriller. Top of the call sheet. Number 1 on the billing. Promotional run that has had her co-hosting morning shows in Times Square, sitting next to Spike Lee. Yes, that's Spike Lee, the man who has been a Knicks fan longer than some of y'all have had functioning kidneys, talking about a championship parade. Remy was on Good Day New York yesterday. She had a co-hosting segment. She had a music video moment with Fat Joe potentially in the works. She had a second sit-down with a musical guest who, if my memory serves, played Jennifer Hudson's brother in Dreamgirls and is currently on Beyond the Gates. Remy Ma is in a season. She is in a moment. She is in a glow-up that is so loud, so undeniable, so booked and blessed that the algorithm itself has had to recalibrate. And on the exact same calendar day that her movie drops, a member of the so-called True Fans of Claressa Facebook group posts about a 3-year-old film with a cameo so brief it might as well be a deleted scene. And Claressa Shields hits the repost button like her thumb was waiting for the alert. That is not fandom. That is not coincidence. That is sabotage with a smile. Now, before we go any deeper, let me back up, because the context is everything and the context is delicious. Yesterday, and this is documented, this is on camera, this is on the air, Remy Ma was sitting in the Good Day New York studio doing what professionals call earned media. Earned media. Earned. Because nobody gave it to her. She did the work, she made the calls, she sat in that chair, and she did her thing. Crystal Young was in Times Square covering Juneteenth festivities. She tossed to her, gracious, smooth, on brand. Then Spike Lee walks in, and I am telling y'all, the energy in that room shifted. Remy Ma, lifelong New Yorker, lifelong Knicks fan, watching Spike Lee, the patron saint of Madison Square Garden bleachers, talk about a championship parade. And she is right there in the conversation. Right there. Spike Lee was visibly, audibly uncomfortable with the other co-host trying to suggest extending the parade route. He literally said no, 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 no. Hand up. Voice raised. He looked at she like, help me out here. That is chemistry. That is a TV moment. That is the kind of segment that lives in clip compilations on this app for the next decade. And while she is having that moment, while she is sitting in legacy daytime television next to a legendary filmmaker, while she is in midair on a press cycle for a Lifetime premiere, Claressa is doing what? Reposting a Facebook recommendation about a 2022 indie cameo. Boy, spoken like a true understudy. Boy, spoken like a true second-place finisher in an event nobody asked her to enter. Let me tell y'all something. I have been watching this dynamic for a long time, and the pattern is so consistent it could be admitted as evidence in a court of law. Anytime Remy has something going on, and I do mean anytime, here comes Claressa. Anytime Remy Ma drops a single, here comes Papoose dropping bars. Anytime she does a press run, here comes Claressa reuniting with a random studio engineer to work on something. Anytime she is announced for a new show, a new movie, a new venture, a new partnership, here comes the Win Records / Wind Records / whatever they're calling it this week attempt to mirror the Remy Ma network beat for beat. It is not subtle. It is not subliminal. It is not even particularly clever. It is paint-by-numbers obsession, and the canvas is somebody else's career. Hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out. There is a difference between healthy competition and hostage-style fixation. Healthy competition says, she did this thing well. Let me get inspired and do my own thing differently. Fixation says, she did this thing, therefore I must do the exact same thing, on the exact same day, with the exact same aesthetic, and I must post it within the same 6-hour window so the algorithm sees us side by side. That is what we are watching. That is the case file. Claressa Shields has been documented copying her outfit choices, her hair direction, her cadence in interviews, her body language on red carpets. And now, on premiere night for a Lifetime movie, the boxer wants you to remember that she was once in a movie too. Sis, we didn't forget. We didn't remember either. But we definitely didn't forget. Let me address the Lola 2 of it all, because I did my homework. I do my homework. I read the call sheet. I timestamped the runtime. Lola 2, released 2022, available on a streaming service that some of y'all have never opened in your life. Total runtime, approximately 92 minutes. Claressa Shields appears as a supporting figure in roughly 15 to 20 minutes of that runtime. And of that 15 to 20 minutes, the vast majority is training footage and ring sequences, which is to say, footage of her doing the literal thing she gets paid to do in real life. That is not acting. That is B-roll with a paycheck. The remaining portion, the actual scene work, is concentrated late in the film. So when Claressa reposts a recommendation telling people to go check this movie out on the same night Remy Ma's brand new top-billed Lifetime premiere is airing, what she is really saying is, please watch the project where I had a side role 3 years ago instead of the project where my partner's ex-wife is the lead tonight. And the audacity of that, the sheer, unfiltered, room temperature audacity of that, is something I am going to need y'all to sit with for a moment. And let me give y'all another visual. Because visuals matter. If you Google the film right now, the search engine will surface Claressa's face like she was the lead. Like she carried the picture. Like she was billed above the title. Why? Because the people in her camp have spent 3 years gaming the SEO, gaming the metadata, gaming the search results, all to make a glorified Cameo look like a starring vehicle. Meanwhile, she is on the actual poster for an actual Lifetime film with an actual marketing budget and an actual premiere date and actual airtime on actual cable television. She did not have to inflate anything. She did not have to repost. She did not have to remind anybody. The network reminded them. The trailer reminded them. The press cycle reminded them. That is what real promotion looks like. Now, here is where the play gets even messier. Because Claressa Shields does different shenanigans on different platforms, and y'all need to understand the architecture of this woman's online operation. On the Bird app, on Twitter/X, that is where the boxer straight up cusses people out. No filter, no concept of consequence, just typing through grief. On Instagram, that is where she plays the victim card. Subliminal captions. Cryptic story posts. Why are people so negative energy? Throwing pebbles at people and then putting her hands behind her back like she didn't just throw a pebble. On the live streams, when the rage finally boils over, she does what the internet has accurately and lovingly nicknamed crash out lives, long, rambling, emotionally dysregulated broadcasts where she says things she cannot retrieve. On the short-form video app, she does the goofy challenges, the lip syncs, the contrived couple content with Papoose, all of which look more strained the longer this so-called relationship drags on. On the disappearing photo app, she tries to do day-in-the-life content like she is Layla Ollie in her kitchen, filming herself eat, filming herself cook, filming herself train, filming herself film. And then on the original blue and white app, she takes the conversation back to Flint, Michigan, where her hometown circle congregates and the discourse gets a particular flavor, a little throwing rocks, a little hiding hands, a little issuing of threats that always seem to evaporate the moment a microphone shows up. That is the multi-platform strategy. That is the operation. And on every single one of those platforms, the gravitational center is the same woman. The woman she cannot stop thinking about. Remy Ma. So when Claressa Shields reposts a Lola 2 recommendation tonight, she is not doing it because Lola 2 needed promotion. Lola 2 has been streaming for 3 years. The promotion window closed in 2022. She is doing it because Remy's name is everywhere this week and she cannot tolerate the asymmetry. She cannot stand the imbalance. She cannot accept that on this particular Saturday, on this particular date, the conversation belongs to one woman and one woman alone. That is the diagnosis. And the diagnosis is not subtle. Let me ask the question that I think a lot of you have been asking quietly. Why? Why this energy? Why this obsession? Why this constant, low-grade fever of fixation? And here is what I think, and again, this is my personal opinion. This is alleged. This is for entertainment. But I think Claressa and Papoose miscalculated. I think they sat at a kitchen table somewhere, possibly in 2024, possibly earlier, and they convinced themselves that exposing the easy black captain situation, that running the narrative about Remy Ma's personal life, that running with whatever they thought they had, was going to crater her standing with her audience. They thought her celebrity was contingent on the marriage. They thought the wife brand was the brand. They thought if they detonated the marriage publicly, Remy Ma's career would crater along with it. And let me just say this piece, they could not have been more wrong if they had been trying. They could not have read the room more incorrectly if the room was on fire. Because here is the truth that they missed. Remy is a celebrity. She was a celebrity before the marriage. She will be a celebrity after the marriage. She had a career, a fan base, a discography, a reality TV presence, a brand portfolio, and a personality long before any of this current chapter began. The marriage was a chapter. The marriage was not the book. And once she, and y'all watch this carefully, once she made the decision to clean house, to walk away from the arranged husband energy of that situation, to stop covering for somebody who was not covering for her, everything has been a green light. Everything has been a glow up. Everything has been opening doors that were previously shut because nothing was holding her back anymore. 2. 3. For reasons this miscalculation has blown up in their faces. 1. Remy Ma was never a one revenue stream artist. She has rap. She has reality television. She has rap battle league appearances. She has talk show co-hosting opportunities. She has her own network in development. She has acting credits. She has performance bookings. She has club appearances. She has brand partnerships. 2. She understood years ago that you cannot let any single income lane be the entire highway. You diversify. You build out. You expand the empire. 3. Remy has the audience goodwill that comes from a decade plus of being visible, being honest, being entertaining, being a personality people actually want to watch. And 4. She has now been freed from the dead weight of a partnership that was, by all alleged appearances, not contributing equally to the building. So when Claressa Shields and Papoose thought they were detonating a bomb, what they actually did was cut Remy Ma out of a harness she didn't realize was holding her down. And now she is flying. And they are still standing on the launch pad, watching the smoke, wondering why the ground is shaking. Anyway, let's keep going. Because the premiere night sabotage attempt is the surface story, but the deeper story is the pattern, and the pattern is what makes this video worth your time. Because patterns reveal intentions. And intentions, once revealed, cannot be hidden again. Pattern 1. Every single time she releases new music, Papoose finds a microphone within 48 hours. Every time. It is so consistent you could set a clock by it. Remy Ma drops a record? Papoose has bars. She does a feature? Papoose announces a feature. She gets press? Papoose calls a podcast and asks if they want a guest. The reactivity is so transparent it embarrasses me on his behalf, and I do not even know the man. Pattern 2. Every time she has a major positive moment, a network announcement, a lifetime green light, a magazine cover, a viral interview clip, Claressa Shields has either a training reunion announcement, a studio session reveal, a we're working on something, tease, or most recently, a repost of a 3-year-old cameo. The timing is not coincidental. It is choreographed. And the choreography always points back to the same fixation. Pattern 3. The aesthetic mimicry. We have talked about this on this channel before, and the receipts have been stacked on top of the receipts. Claressa has shown up in outfits that read like fanfiction versions of Remy Ma fits. The hair, the nails, the mannerisms in interviews, the cadence of her vocabulary when she is trying to sound like a public figure rather than an athlete. It is mirroring. And mirroring is what people do when they want to absorb someone else's identity instead of building their own. Pattern 4. The burner account behavior. And let me say this carefully, because allegations are allegations. But there is a long-standing, well-documented pattern within celebrity feuds where one party maintains a secondary online presence to monitor the other party's content. I would not be the slightest bit surprised if Claressa has eyes on her every post. What she wore to the Knicks parade in that Chanel-coated jersey dress, what she chose for the Good Day New York co-host appearance, what she's signaling for tonight's premiere. And I would not be surprised if, in the next 2 weeks, we see Claressa show up in something that bears a striking resemblance to one of Remy Ma's most recent looks. Because that is the playbook. That is the receipt history. That is the muscle memory. Now, let me pivot because we have to address the human side of this, the actual woman at the center of the obsession. And listen, Claressa Shields in the boxing ring is an athlete. Nobody on this channel has ever taken that away from her. Olympic medals. World titles. A real, documented, undeniable resume in the sport. The issue has never been whether she can box. The issue has always been what Claressa does outside of the ring. Because outside of the ring, she is not a celebrity. She is not a mainstream household name. She is not a Lifetime movie headlining, Times Square co-hosting, Spike Lee sitting next to her cultural force. She is an elite athlete in a sport that, fair or unfair, does not generate the same crossover relevance as music or film. And the gap between how Claressa perceives her own cultural standing and how the broader culture actually receives her is the entire reason this saga exists. Hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out. If Claressa Shields were simply secure in being the greatest female boxer of her era, this entire feud would not exist. There would be no need to repost Lola 2 on Remy Ma's premiere night. There would be no need to mirror the wardrobe. There would be no need to throw subliminal punches from behind a burner account. The very fact that the energy exists is the diagnosis. The energy is the symptom. The energy says, I want what she has, and I cannot accept that what I have is not the same thing. And that is a painful place to live. It really is. I am not saying this to be cruel. I am saying this because it is observable. Claressa appears to be waging a one-woman war against Remy's relevance, and the Queen of New York is not even on the battlefield. She is at the premiere. She is at the parade. She is at the studio. She is at the network meeting. She is at the table. And what is Claressa doing? Reposting a 2022 cameo. On premiere night. On Remy Ma's premiere night. Sis, take a deep breath with me. Let us cleanse the palate. Because I want to make sure I am giving Remy the flowers she deserves before we get back into the mess. The new film, the one debuting tonight on Lifetime, is her second feature for the network. Second. That means the first one did well enough that they brought her back. That means the executives looked at the ratings, looked at the social conversation, looked at the audience retention, and said, run it back. That is not nothing. That is a vote of confidence in a competitive cable landscape where Lifetime is making fewer original films than they used to. And the title of this one, Don't Trust the Girls Upstairs, is so on the nose to the current real-life narrative that it borders on art imitating life, imitating art, imitating who knows what. A psychological thriller about secrets, suspicion, and the kind of person you should never have invited into your circle? Sis, the metaphor writes itself. And I am not saying Remy Ma greenlit this picture specifically to send a message. I am saying the universe has a sense of humor, and the universe handed her a script that doubles as a personality test. And she took the role. Because she is a professional. Because she is collecting checks. Because she understands that the best response to noise is to be too booked to hear it. Meanwhile, where is Claressa tonight? Let me speculate, because we are in opinion territory and the speculation is part of the fun. She is probably scrolling. She is probably refreshing. She is probably watching the lifetime ratings come in like a hedge fund manager watching the close of trading. And every single uptick in viewership is another knife. Every single positive review is another wound. Every single tweet praising her performance is another reminder that the woman she has spent years trying to outrun is, in fact, accelerating away from her. And let me say one more thing about the Lola 2 repost, because I want to give it the autopsy it deserves. The person who originally posted the recommendation in the so-called True Fans Facebook group misspelled multiple names. Tamala Jones was rendered as Tamales Jones. Elise Neal was rendered with the wrong spelling. Roy Jones Jr. was almost reduced to Boxy Jones Jr. That is the level of editorial care being deployed by the fan ecosystem the boxer is choosing to amplify. That is the standard. That is the production quality. And she reposted it anyway. Because the goal was not accuracy. The goal was visibility. The goal was to throw something, anything, into the air on the exact night Remy had a moment, just to see if it would land in someone's timeline and create a tiny bit of static. That is not strategy. That is desperation with a publicist. That is a Hail Mary thrown by a woman who has already lost the game and is just trying to scuff up the field for the winning team. And Remy Ma, to her credit, has not engaged, has not responded, has not retweeted, has not addressed it. Because she understands a principle that Claressa and Papoose have never quite mastered: silence is leverage. Silence is the loudest move in the playbook. When you have the receipts, when you have the work, when you have the resume, you do not have to argue. You let the resume argue for you. And her resume is on cable television tonight, in prime time, with an audience that is showing up specifically for her. Let me pivot again, because we need to talk about Papoose briefly before we wrap. Because Papoose is the third leg of the stool, and the stool does not stand without him. Papoose, the separated husband. Papoose, the man who reportedly did not actually want to leave the marriage. Papoose, the rapper who has spent the better part of 2 decades being mostly known for being Remy Ma's husband. Papoose, who is now in a public-facing situationship with Claressa Shields that, from the outside, looks less like a love story and more like a content collaboration with no exit strategy. Every appearance, every podcast, every social media spot has the same flat effect, the same forced couple energy, the same vibe of 2 people trying to convince the camera of something the camera isn't buying. And the longer this drags on, the more it looks like a partnership of mutual utility rather than a relationship of mutual desire. And here is my last big thought on this. Claressa is, by all public-facing evidence, spending her 30s on a man who reportedly did not want to leave his wife in the first place. That is the situation. That is the alleged backdrop. And every time she reposts a Lola 2 recommendation, every time she throws a sub at she, every time she mirrors an outfit or a cadence or a posture, what she is really doing is broadcasting that the situationship she fought for is not delivering the validation she expected. Because validation does not come from copying. Validation comes from creating. And Remy Ma has been creating. Constantly. Loudly. Visibly. On purpose. She has her own network in the pipeline. She has a talk show concept on the horizon. She is acting, performing, headlining, hosting, mentoring, and pivoting like a woman who understood, years ago, that the only way to win in this business is to refuse to be one thing. Claressa Shields, on the other hand, seems to have built her recent strategy around the assumption that being adjacent to someone famous, dating someone famous adjacent, would generate enough crossover relevance to elevate her own profile. And the brutal truth is it has not. It has done the opposite. It has made her look smaller. It has made her look reactive. It has made her look like a woman whose 2026 game plan is to keep tabs on what she is doing instead of building her own 2026. What is more telling than reposting a 3-year-old cameo on someone else's premiere night? Nothing. Nothing is more telling. Because that single act compresses everything we have been saying into one piece of evidence. The obsession. The timing. The deflection. The desperation. The miscalculation. All of it. Right there. In a single repost. With multiple misspellings in the original post. Boy. So let me bring this in for a landing. Remy Ma's movie premieres tonight. Don't trust the girls upstairs. Lifetime. Set your DVR. Set your reminder. Tell your group chat. Bring snacks. Make it an event. Because the woman delivering that performance is the woman who has weathered the storm, walked away from the dead weight, ignored the noise, and shown up for her own life with both hands. Remy is the headline. She is the call sheet. She is the top billing. And while she is doing all of that, Claressa is reposting a 2022 Cameo and trying to figure out which platform she is going to crash out on next. We have seen this movie before. We have seen this story before. And we know how it ends. The woman who builds wins. The woman who copies loses. The woman who stays focused thrives. The woman who stays fixated falls behind. And Claressa Shields, with every repost, with every mirrored fit, with every burner account scroll, is writing the script of her own slow fade in real time. Now I want to hear from you. I want to hear from every single one of you who has been watching this saga unfold in real time. Have you noticed the pattern? Have you noticed the timing? Have you noticed the way the boxer seems to schedule her content drops to overlap with her biggest moments? Drop a comment. Tell me what you saw. Tell me what you've been screenshotting. Tell me which moment was the most flagrant for you. Because I read the comments. I do. I read them. And the comment section on these videos has become its own evidence locker. But before I let y'all go all the way, I have to circle back to one more piece of the puzzle, because we glossed over it earlier and it deserves its own beat. The Knicks championship parade. Let me give y'all a good visual one more time. Remy on the floats. She in that jersey-coated fit that had every fashion blog scrambling for a frame-by-frame breakdown. Remy waving to her city. She in the photographs that ran in every major outlet. She's sharing oxygen with Spike Lee, with Knicks royalty, with the mayor's office, with the front office of the franchise itself. That is a New York moment. That is a hometown moment. That is a moment that money cannot buy and reposted cameos cannot manufacture. And while that moment was happening, while she was being photographed next to the parade route, while she was sliding into history as a documented presence at one of the most watched basketball celebrations the city has hosted in a generation, what was Claressa Shields doing? Posting workout content from a hotel gym, filming herself with no audience, trying to convert sweat into relevance. And it did not convert. It did not transfer. It did not land. Because the camera was somewhere else. The cameras were following The cameras were following the parade. And no amount of solo filming in front of a bathroom mirror was going to redirect those cameras back to Flint. I want to make sure I am being precise here, because precision matters. Claressa, as a boxer, has accomplishments. As a public figure outside of boxing, she has consistently struggled to translate athletic achievement into mainstream cultural capital. And the explanation is not personal, it is structural. Women's boxing, for all of its growth, does not occupy the same primetime real estate as music, film, or reality television. It is a smaller pond. The endorsement dollars are different. The press attention is different. The crossover opportunities are different. And Claressa appears to have understood, somewhere along the way, that the only way to inject herself into mainstream conversation was to attach her name to someone whose name was already in the mainstream. Enter Papoose. Enter the proximity play. Enter the alleged strategy of becoming relevant by becoming controversial. And here is where the math has failed her. Because controversy attached to a peripheral figure does not create stardom. It creates exhaustion. The audience does not migrate. The audience does not adopt. The audience watches the spectacle, screenshots the receipts, and goes right back to following the people they were following before. And that is the part that I think the boxer has not internalized. She thinks the controversy generates fans. The controversy actually generates witnesses. Witnesses are not fans. Witnesses are not customers. Witnesses are not the people who buy your pay-per-view, stream your music video, watch your Lifetime premiere, or show up at your meet and greet. Witnesses are the people who watch from the sidelines and then move on. And Claressa has been collecting witnesses for 2 years while losing fans. That is the trade. That is the deal she made. And tonight, on Remy Ma's premiere night, the trade looks worse than ever. One more visual, and then I promise we are landing. Remy after tonight. She tomorrow morning. Remy walking into a network meeting next week with a Lifetime premiere under her belt, a Spike Lee co-sign on tape, a Times Square morning show appearance in her clip reel, and a brand new music video on deck with Fat Joe. That is a portfolio. That is a quarter. That is a Q2 that any artist in any genre would sign up for in blood. Now picture Claressa tomorrow morning. Picture her opening her phone. Picture her seeing the numbers. Picture her seeing the headlines. Picture her seeing the tweets. Picture her trying to figure out what her next move is going to be. Because reposting a 2022 Cameo did not move the needle. The numbers will tell her that. The silence from the timeline will tell her that. And then she will pivot. She will pivot to a podcast. She will pivot to a live stream. She will pivot to a subtweet. She will pivot to something. And whatever she pivots to, it will still be downstream of Remy Ma. It will still be a reaction. It will still be a response to a press release she never had to issue. That is the trap. That is the inescapable gravity of the situation Claressa has built for herself. She has tied her own publicity strategy to a woman who has already moved on. And as long as Remy keeps moving, the boxer has to keep chasing. And the chase is exhausting. The chase is undignified. The chase is, frankly, embarrassing to watch from the cheap seats, and we are in the cheap seats with snacks. And before we get to the wrap, I want to slot in one final piece of color, because the receipts have receipts. Let me tell y'all what nobody is saying out loud. The Lifetime audience is a very specific audience. That audience reads. That audience watches. That audience tunes in week after week, year after year. And that audience has been quietly cataloging every single black actress the network elevates. The Lifetime audience knows who is showing up, who is delivering, and who is being booked for follow-up projects. And Don't Trust the Girls Upstairs is not a one-off. It is a continuation. It is a signal from the network that the previous project moved the needle enough to justify a second swing. 2 swings in less than 3 years on a network that does not casually hand out repeat business is, in industry terms, a relationship. And relationships in this business are how careers get built when the music charts get tired and the streaming numbers get noisy. So while certain people are reposting cameos from 2022 and pretending that counts as a film career, the woman they are obsessed with is quietly stacking a real one. Quietly, methodically, with network executives, with showrunners, with casting directors, with people whose phone calls actually matter. That is the difference between performing relevance and accumulating it. That is the difference between costume and credential. And that is the difference that is going to keep showing up in every news cycle, every awards conversation, every green light meeting for the foreseeable future. 2 more things before I let y'all go. 1. If you're new here, welcome. We do this every single day. We pull receipts. We connect dots. We say the things the gossip columns are too lawyered up to print. So hit that subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. Hit the like. Hype this video. Push it into the algorithm with everything you've got. Because the more this video moves, the more the truth moves with it. 2. There is going to be a part 2. I am telling you right now. Because there is more. There is so much more. There is a whole conversation we have not even touched yet about the Win Records situation and how it mirrors the Remy Ma network blueprint move for move. There is a whole conversation we have not touched yet about the alleged burner account activity and the screenshots that have been quietly circulating in certain circles. There is a whole conversation we have not touched yet about what Papoose's actual long-term play looks like, because the man has not had a chart presence in years and is somehow always present at events tied to his ex-wife's success. There is a whole conversation we have not touched yet about whether Lifetime is going to greenlight a 3rd Remy Ma feature based on tonight's numbers, and what that would mean for her transition into a fully fledged on-screen career. And there is a whole conversation we have not touched yet about what happens to a so-called true fans Facebook group when the algorithm finally decides the obsession content is no longer worth surfacing. All of that is coming. All of that is on the docket. So tonight, watch the movie. Watch Remy Ma do her thing on Lifetime. Make it a moment. Make it a thread. Make it a watch party. And then come back here tomorrow, because I will have thoughts, and y'all will have thoughts, and we are going to put it all on the table together. That is the show. That is the time. That is the energy. I will meet y'all on the other side, and I will see y'all very, very soon. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and do not, under any circumstances, trust the girls upstairs. Talk soon.